Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is Book Chats, and today I am talking about The Symptoms of Being Human by Jeff Garvin. This is the 13th debut that I read for the Debut Author Challenge, but it is the 14th review I am posting because things. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this book because I think it's one of the strongest debuts that I've read so far this year, and I think it really surprised me in a lot of ways. If you haven't heard, Symptoms of Being Human is a young adult contemporary novel that is about a main character who is gender fluid. It's about a gender fluid main character. Some days this main character feels like one gender, and some days this character feels like another gender, and sometimes this character is just not really sure. Anyway, this is a book about that experience, and it is told in a way where, so here's the thing. I heard of this before I read the book, but I just assumed it was like a gimmick, or it would be gimmicky, which is that you as the reader do not know the assigned sex of the main character, like the sex that this character was assigned at birth when the doctors and parents looked at their genitalia and were like, you look like this. You don't know that. And you don't know it the entire book. And I just assumed that it would come off kind of gimmicky and that I would totally be able to tell until I read the book, and I couldn't. Like, this character really feels in so many ways like someone who, like, as someone who identifies with the gender that I was, like, matches the sex I was assigned at birth based on, you know, my appearance. It's hard for me to really imagine or comprehend what it is like to be a gender fluid person. And reading this book really, really puts you in that headspace in a way where, like, you were like, I cannot guess. And I, like, thought that I could guess, because I'm good at guessing things, guys. I'm really good. Anyway, that was probably unintelligible, and I'll probably cut the whole thing out of this review, but that was a really remarkable thing about this book. So my official notes now, so I have a comprehensive and interesting review. So the short summary that I would say about my experience with this book, it was surprising. It was a little bit Gender 101, but I think that that was, like, good for me reading this book, and I think it could be good for the intended audience of this book. I'm just saying, if you're going in thinking it'll be like Gender 201 or 301 or graduate level, just, it's not. And I think in some ways it's a bit optimistic about some of the situations involved. At the same time, the author is not afraid to show some of the dangers and challenges that are faced by people like Riley, and in situations like Riley's, where they're maybe gender nonconforming or gender fluid or have other similar situations. This book surprised me. I really thought that Riley's being gender fluid would come off as a gimmick or would prove to be superficial. I really thought that I would be able to tell that Riley really was one gender or another gender. I really didn't believe it would be as convincing as it was, and then I was really surprised and delighted that Jeff Garvin really pulled this off. He wrote something that really feels genuine, and I think that especially my experience reading this book was really informed because not too long before I read the book, I listened to a podcast. I think it's the very first episode of the very first season of Invisibilia that actually talks to someone who is, or for a large part of their life was, gender fluid, about the experience of being gender fluid. And going from listening to that firsthand account and then to reading Riley's first person account really, really was like a huge, like hugely congruous experience for me. I felt like those two really melded together and really informed each other. I also really, really appreciate that Riley was called out more or less for being judgy when Riley was being judgy. There were moments when Riley was, like, judging other people for the ways they were or weren't behaving in accordance with the gender they were presenting, and for other kind of things they were doing, and Riley was being a judgy pants McJudgerson and got called out on it. And I really did appreciate that, because I think it would have frustrated me a lot otherwise. The story at points feels a little like kind of a Gender 101 class, and Riley's has this, like, meteoric rise to fame, and it feels a little too good to be true. But Garvin doesn't spare Riley from bullying and assault either. Riley faces some of the things that do occur in larger proportion in these populations than in just the mainstream population of, you know, people who are, like, gender conforming. Is that the right term? I don't know. The romance for me in this book was pretty meh. just seemed kind of oddly perfect, and I wasn't really on board with it. But the book as a whole was really well done. I really thought it was a really good introduction to this topic. And I want to say through all of this that, like, I am not a gender fluid person, so I don't really know what good representation is. Jeff Garvin is not a gender fluid person. He is not writing an Own Voices book here, and I would definitely need to seek out reviews from people who do identify with Riley more specifically. So take all of this with a grain of salt, and that grain of salt, but it really did feel like a book that was really working to be authentic, but didn't feel like it was working, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I would definitely recommend you consider picking it up. The Symptoms of Being Human by Jeff Garvin. This book was actually recommended to me by two booktubers, Kayla from Kayla Rain and also Michelle from Michelle is Life. And so, like, kudos to both of those ladies. I think they probably both have reviews out on their channel from much earlier in the year, much closer to when I actually read it. If you do read it or you have read it, let me know down below what you thought, and I will talk to you later. Bye!